welcome to today's edition of Around the League, presented by Six Man Rotation. My name is Corey Herback, and I will be your host today. Alongside me is my partner in crime, as always, Michael Farrow. Farrow, how you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good. Not with the recent trades, but pretty good.
But don't worry, we're going to get into how disappointed you are in a second by the other trades. But also with us today, we are having our resident in-house White Sox fan, Jonathan Butler. John, how you doing today, man? Welcome aboard.
I'm doing good. It's been a busy day, but I'm ready to talk some baseball because it's been a really interesting week, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait to talk some baseball, especially with the all the White Sox rumors going on.
Well, plus it's with the Stanton news and Ohtani finally both dropping into their places, everything's starting to heat up really, really quick. Really.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to talk about it. But first, we're going to start off as per usual with our Zach Greinke quote of the week. Farrow, you got that great Greinke impression. I'm going to let you take it away, buddy.
Okay. You're not allowed to write about me if you haven't seen The Shawshank Redemption. See it, then get back to me.
I love that impression. It is so spot on. So spot on. And unfortunately, I can't write about Greinke because I have not seen The Shawshank Redemption.
Yep, same. Well, no, I have seen it. Messed up there. My bad.
Come on, man. Can't lie to us about that.
I can't lie to Greinke. I'm sorry.
But now, John, you going to be able to write about Greinke? You seen the movie?
Absolutely. I've seen it. I love the movie. It holds up pretty well, but how have you guys not seen it?
I have. I
saw
messed up.
I saw parts of it. I saw scenes of it. But one thing all my friends know about me is that if you ask me about a popular movie, 9 times out of 10, I haven't seen it. So I just don't watch movies.
Yeah, it makes sense. It takes me a while to finally see a lot of them too, unless it's something I really want to see, like the new Star Wars. It really passes me over for probably a good year.
Yeah. To go off that, I have never seen a single Star Wars movie, if that says anything about how I am.
Oh man.
So I've never seen a single Star Wars movie, if that goes off of how little movies I've seen. But anyway,
now you can't even talk to Greinke now. You won't let that happen.
I know. I can't even speak about him anymore. Well, before he gets mad, we're going to move on from there. Next is our rant of the week. We decided to leave this up to John. You told us you were having a little issue coming to us on the rant about. Did you find something to rant about?
It's as much as I love the sport of baseball, it's just absolutely ridiculous to me that the Marlins are able to do what they've done this last week between trading Marcell Ozuna to the Cardinals and getting rid of Stanton for basically nothing. You've gutted the team again when they had an excellent core, even after the loss of Jose Fernandez a year ago. It's the fact that you gutted this team, and what did they really get back? They didn't get anything. And now you're trading Stanton, especially to the Yankees of all teams, that I personally had a like for this last year, because it was nice to see them go from okay, we're going to burn it down, build it back up, do it the right way. Hey, we got close to the World Series, but nope, okay, hey, we're ready. We're going to buy everything again. And the fact that you're going to have the combination of Stanton, Judge, and Sanchez all together is just, it's insane to me. I can't understand how the Marlins are allowed to do this, especially with the fact that Jeter, apparently we saw a report earlier this week that he didn't even have the money to really run the team, and that's why they're cutting salary. I don't get it. How does a league let an owner buy a team with money they don't have?
I completely agree. I mean, as much as I hate to diss Jeter, because I am a Yankees fan, he's my favorite player of all time. He is just a terrible owner. I mean, I just don't. I mean, it's not only him. I mean, you see people across sports who just can't take that next step. I mean, Jeter, great player, terrible owner. I'm trying to think. What's his name? Phil Jackson, basketball, amazing coach, horrible executive for the New York Knicks. I mean, it's just some people just aren't fitted for the next step or the next level. And I love Jeter as a person, but he is a horrible owner. He has made no good moves.
And the thing with the news I heard of him not really being even at the winter meetings, not even going to them.
Right, yeah. I was very surprised by that. The fact that you make this deal and all of a sudden you're just kind of not there for one of the biggest times of the year, of the off season.
Yeah, I was watching the Monday Night Football and this showed him, and I'm like, shouldn't you be about an hour and 45 minutes up north making trades? I just couldn't believe that. I don't understand what Jeter was doing there. But anyway,
no, we didn't. There was also D. Gordon being traded, which that one was okay. I think it's more laughable that the Mariners want to play him in center field, but still.
I mean, that one's not so bad because he's already. I actually think center field would be all right for him. He's definitely got the speed.
Mhm.
The biggest thing with him is he's really only got speed as his biggest tool. His contact is pretty good, but the fact that usually around that 30-31 mark, we really see these players fall off the table when it comes to their speed. And that one I kind of understand getting out from, but it'll be interesting seeing him play center field for sure.
Yeah, it's just such a shift from second base. I feel like he can do it, but it's just such a weird thing to be like, okay, we're gonna trade for this guy, and now he's center field.
Yeah, to me, the D Gordon trade is interesting. It's kind of fielding wise, he's gonna remind me a lot of Johnny Damon. Great speed, great glove, can't throw for anything. He's gonna have no arm. I mean, so to me, it just seems like a typical Mariners move, you know, like something that's marginally gonna improve the club, but not actually make them like that next level. So, and to me, look, I everybody knows I love making fun of the Mariners for that reason. They never after Cano and Cruz, they haven't really made that move that makes them much better. So to me, it's funny to see that move, but I want to see the Mariners do something big. And putting D Gordon in center field or adding Ryan Healy, those aren't the moves that are going to make them better. So,
It does feel like we've seen the same Mariners team year in and year out for about the last 4 years, and there's really hasn't been that many improvements outside of Cano, like you said.
yeah, exactly.
Even, I mean, first base has been a hole for them for a while. The rotation has been questionable past Felix and Paxton, who can't stay on the field for about more than 140 innings. I mean, it's Haniger looked good last year when he started. Then he got derailed by the injury and finally started to heat up at the end of the year again. But they really haven't changed in a long time, and it's weird to think of it just because we see so many of these teams change every year. Even 6 months, they're completely different, but the Mariners always feel the same for some reason.
Yeah, they just never seem to improve, and every year you can count on them for 80 to 85 wins and never more unless everything goes right. And they did get Mike Leake from the Cardinals. I think a lot of people forgot that, but like Mike Leake isn't a game-changing pitcher. Solid pitcher, always going to give you similar stats, but he's not a game-changing pitcher. And they almost landed Ohtani. For a while there, I thought they were going to get him. That would have been huge. But until they get the Yu Darvish type or the Ohtani type or whatever, they're just going to keep being in the same place. And now that I think about it, we got very off topic there. Huge tangent. But anyway, agree with you, Jonathan, that the Marlins have no idea what they're doing. Back to the main point. And now to our next segment, winner and loser of the week. We kind of touched on it already. The loser of the week, obviously the Miami Marlins. They're gutting payroll, losing their entire fan base, pretty much betting on themselves for 100 lost seasons for the next, not even 5 years, next 10 years. One thing I want to think about, and I don't know how you guys will agree. I'm not ready to fully judge Jeter, and I know that's going to sound biased coming from me, but the reason GMs are given 3 to 5 year contracts right off the bat is because it takes time to build a team. So do you guys think that maybe there is a plan in place where they're like, look, we're going to gut payroll, look like idiots now, but down the line we have this plan in place to make ourselves better? Do you guys think that maybe there's a thing there for that, or if I'm just being completely off base?
I don't know, man. From the stuff that I've seen with Jeter himself, with like him not being at the winter meetings like we talked about, and with the fact that it's true that they didn't have the money to pay for the team, it doesn't feel like there's a plan. It feels like this is them trying to make a starting point. It feels like they bit off too much, more than they could chew, where it feels now like, oh, well, we messed up, so let's try and make it manageable. Let's do some damage control. It doesn't feel like there's a plan for the future. It's just a plan for right now.
Yeah, exactly. John, how do you feel about that?
Well, being a Sox fan, I kind of understand where he's coming from of, hey, we want to burn down the team and rebuild it by getting rid of salary and stuff like that. But you're not building anything. I mean, you've got a potential pitcher from you've only got 2 pitchers, and none of them are really proven. There's a lot of questions about both of them, and you're getting rid of salary, you're trading them away, and kind of doing what the White Sox are, as they've reported they wanted to do, but you're not getting anything in return for guys that are stars. I mean, Marcell Ozuna had a terrible end of season at 2016, and everybody was questioning him going into the 2017 season of whether he could do it all year because his first half splits are so much different from his second half splits. But the fact that you're following the same road of selling off pieces, but you're not getting anything for it. And I completely understand they get 5-year contracts for a reason, but you trade away, especially a guy that can hit 59 home runs in the NL East itself, besides just the Miami Park, you've got to get back something that's a game changer for your team. Somebody that's going to be a surefire star. I mean, look at what the White Sox got for Chris Sale. I know it's a pitcher, but you got Michael Kopech, who has a very high ceiling right now. And not only on top of that, you got Moncada. I mean, you got 2 stars that were both top 50 prospects. Mm-hmm. And what did the Marlins get back for a 59 home run guy in Stanton? Nothing, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. They should have gotten more. The problem for them is that with Stanton's no-trade clause, he pretty much put the Marlins in a bind. They couldn't really do anything unless you gave them the okay. Now, the one report that I saw that really surprised me was how Stanton ended. At first, it seemed like Stan denied the trades to St. Louis and San Francisco, and then gave them his 4 destinations that he'd go to. But apparently, he gave them the list before those trades, and they continued to talk trade with other teams anyway. So I don't really get what they were doing there. I do agree they needed to trade Stanton, needed to get him off the payroll. A franchise like that just can't afford to give 30 to 40% of their payroll to one player, no matter how good he is. Mm-hmm. But he put the team in such a bind that they had no choice but to just unload him at that point. And the Yankees definitely got off with the steal, no doubt about that. Cardinals at least gave up something. I mean, Magneuris, Sierra, and Alcantara, they're decent prospects, so they at least got something there, you know. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, so far, Miami has not done a good job, and that's obvious to say.
I think that bounces off to our winners of the week.
Absolutely,
which would be for you, or one of the 2 winners we have of the week would be the Yankees.
Absolutely,
completely taking the Marlins behind the shed.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was the Friday night. I'm hanging out with some friends, and my phone all of a sudden starts blowing up, and I didn't look at it for like an hour. My phone blows up, and I open Twitter, and all I see is the Yankees are closing in on a deal for Giancarlo Stanton. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And then obviously I couldn't sleep that night. Got like 4 hours of sleep. Woke up the next morning, see that the trade was basically complete, and they're just waiting physical. And in my mind, once we saw the thing that came out, I saw all the jokes like, oh, Derek Jeter's still on the Yankees payroll, and he's just making the Yankees better. Honestly, that honestly was like, you know what? That could be the case. Because the Yankees took such advantage of the team. And I don't understand it. And look, after seeing that, if you're the Astros, Cubs, or Dodgers, I don't understand how you're not kicking yourself for not getting Stanton for that cheap. Mm-hmm. Especially a team like the Astros, who just won the World Series and have a ton of money off of their extra media stuff and a ton of money of the shares. They could be able to afford him. So I don't understand why they didn't step in. Apparently they did try to step in, but it never got close. Mm-hmm. If I was one of those teams and I saw that Stanton wanted to come to me, I would do whatever it takes to get that man on my team. And luckily for me, Cash made it happen.
Well, and especially, too, it's not like the Astros have a whole lot of holes that they have to fill, and they've got plenty of prospects. It's not like they have 2 prospects to fill their farm system. They have a ton of talent right now. They would be able to absolutely split with. And if I remember right, I saw a rumor going around that the Blue Jays were talking about it, and the first thing that the Marlins requested from them was Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. Like, I could see where they would come from with that, but the fact that you don't have anything, the fact that you end up giving that deal to the Yankees and you don't get that much out of it when you're asking for that from other teams is insane to me.
Yeah, go ahead, Farrah.
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I did see a thing that said, to start it out, the Marlins asked for, like, Gleyber Torres and Clint Frazier from the Yankees. Obviously, they were never expecting to get them. So at least they did their due diligence a little bit and tried, but they knew they weren't trying hard enough. I mean, they literally turned it to the point where, like, you know what, just take this money and give us pretty much nothing in return. I mean, look, Jorge Guzman, he's a decent pitcher. And Gary Denbo came from the Yankees, so he knew what he was trading for. But he's not worth a generational hit power tool like Stanton. And One thing you said where you were like the Astros don't have any gaping hole or glaring holes. I completely agree, but the Yankees didn't either. I mean, they had Aaron Judge in right field, and they traded for a right fielder. So if you're the Astros or the Cubs or whatever, I don't care. I don't care who's in that position. You got to try to get a guy like that in your team. And we're going to touch back on this a little bit. So I'm going to move over to other winner. For the first time in a very long time, the winner of the week is the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, they landed a generational talent like Shohei Ohtani. They traded for their second baseman. They're still looking to make upgrades. Apparently, I read that they could be a favorite to land Mike Moustakas. I mean, they're making moves. They're trying to build it up. They're finally giving Mike Trout some talent around him. They're looking to make moves. How do you guys feel about the Angels now? Do you guys think that they could potentially be a wild card team?
I think with the direction they're going, probably. I feel like, especially in the AL, they could probably make a push for it. As long as Ohtani is fully healthy when the season starts, which he probably will be.
I agree with you on that. And there's, especially with the way that the AL is, you have a lot of talent leaving certain teams. Like we'll get to it later, but the Twins the Twins are still going to be up there, but the Royals and the Tigers and Seattle and Texas and Oakland, a lot of these teams are rebuilding still. So the Angels definitely have their chance because they finished 80 and 82, and adding between Kinsler and Ohtani. And if you do add Moustakas out there, third base was terrible for the Angels last year. So you're filling a couple of holes there where they could easily add another 7, 8, 9 wins throughout the season and be right up there for a wild card. Because Minnesota took it at 85 and 77. So you're talking a 5-game difference there last year.
Yeah, I truly think that the Angels will actually have a shot now. I don't know how I feel about the Twins, especially because they're a young team. They don't have much pitching, and they don't really have a bullpen. And the crazy part is that they actually sold at the deadline, and then they ended up pulling it out and being able to win make its wild card. Yeah. So I don't really know how to feel about them. Their defense up the middle is amazing. Martin Maldonado, Andrelton Simmons, Andy Kinsler, and Trout up the middle. That's going to go a very, very, very long way. So I still think they need one more piece, whether that's a guy like, especially a bat. They need another bat, maybe Mike Moustakas, maybe a trade for a first baseman. They also need another pitcher. So I still think they're 2 pieces away. Ohtani helps. Kinsler offensively doesn't really help. Defensively, he does. But they're still 2 pieces away, in my opinion. That doesn't mean they can't compete for a wild card, because especially with the Stanton trade, the AL is going to be very watered down now. So I still think they can compete. I'd like to see them get the 2 more pieces before I consider to say, yeah, they actually have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, think about it this way, though. So you may have forgotten about Justin Upton. He's out there, too. So now, the middle of your order is going to be a Mike Trout. You're going to have Albert Pujols out there, Justin Upton. Otani's going to be in there on certain days, and even C.J. Cron. You add Moustakas in there, that's a very tough middle of the lineup to go through constantly.
Absolutely. They're definitely right there. They just need that one extra piece. Or that one.
And they're going to be a team that really bangs the ball out of the ballpark, too.
Absolutely. They're going to put some power up. And I'm excited to see what they do. I mean, our writer who writes for the Angels for a website, I always give him like crap for the Angels, but I always admit that they're a decent team. I'll always admit that. And I'm excited to see what they do this year. So they were definitely one of the winners this week, especially after getting Ohtani and Kinsler and all the moves that they're going to make. And moving on to our next segment, hot take of the week. I have my own hot take. If either of you guys want one, you're welcome to throw it in too. But my hot take, the Diamondbacks will trade Zach Greinke, and they will regret it. Obviously, the Diamondbacks just had an incredible year. They won 90-something games, won the wild card. They got knocked out in the first round, unfortunately. They were my sleeper team to win the entire World Series. The reports surfaced that the Yankees were trying to go after him. There were multiple teams, Yankees especially, but I saw multiple reports that multiple teams started inquiring about him. And apparently the Diamondbacks were willing to eat some salary to get rid of him to try to re-sign J.D. Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
I completely disagree with that move. To me, J.D. Martinez is completely overhyped. I mean, yeah, he's a great bat, hit 40-something home runs and missed half a lot of the beginning of the season. Had a career year. But the guy's already 30. He can't play any defense. and he was a late bloomer. I mean, his first good season was when he was 28 or 27 or 28. So he's going to require $200 million, and I have a feeling the Boston Red Sox are going to give it to him. The Diamondbacks don't want to get into a bidding war with the guys like the Boston Red Sox. And if they're going to trade a pitcher like Zach Greinke, who was completely underrated, maybe a Hall of Famer one day, who just came off another career year of a almost 7-war season, they're going to completely regret it. Greinke adjusted to Arizona. I truly think that they'll regret it if they do it, and they need to keep him on the roster. So that's my take. Do either of you guys, or my hot take? Do either of you guys have one to throw out there?
Nah, I'd like to talk about that one more though, where it's
Absolutely.
if we look at the thing is Greinke's contract is huge.
Absolutely.
It's really big right now. Where I could understand wanting to offload that if you were contending, but they're contending right now, and Zach Greinke's a major part in that. Where even with all of the money he's making, which is $31 million a year around, which is crazy.
Actually, I just pulled up his thing. He's making $35 million for the next 2 seasons, and then $36 million for the 2 seasons after that.
So that's with bonuses. I was looking at base salary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still, that's crazy though. It's
Yeah,
just
still ridiculous.
Jeez.
And that's him. He'll be with them until his 39-year-old season, which is that's near the end of someone's usually good career, unless you're Bartolo Colon. But I'd understand offloading him in maybe 2020, but right now it doesn't seem like the best time. It feels like he's a big part in your contending. You could probably find a replacement for JD Martinez, hopefully.
Absolutely.
But right now, if you want to give up on Greinke, there's really, unless you find another front court starter, someone who can carry the team like he has, I don't think it's a good idea.
I'm right there with you on that. I don't see how you can trade Greinke when you've got a lot of questions about Corbin, who was expected to be the team's ace a few years ago. Taijuan Walker is improving. He's getting there. Robbie Ray is probably underrated. He's done really well over the last season with his breakout. Zach Godley's right there. But the fact that you want to trade away Zach Greinke, who had a 3.20 ERA, and all of his peripherals, like his FIP and his xFIP, are 3.31 and 3.34, so it's right in line. It's not like he had some crazy season where nothing matched. His peripherals didn't match what his output. And you have some depth behind it, but nothing that's really top of the line, shut down in order for a game, that stopper that you need when your team hits a slide. Because every team does. Every team hits that skid where they can't do anything right, and you need that guy to just pull you out that day and get a win. And Greinke is that guy.
Absolutely.
I don't see how, especially with the them wanting to add the humidifier, it's only going to help. So I don't see how you get rid of Greinke at that point. You need him, especially with the team around him. You need that team to keep competing, because right now is their winning window. They have their chance, especially after trading or getting Boxberger earlier this week. You're kind of improving the back of the bullpen to help the front of the rotation. So I don't get it.
Yeah. To me, it's like, you know what? From a small market team like the Diamondbacks, which I don't know if they're truly a small market, but a team like them who don't pull in the big bucks like the Red Sox, Yankees, or Dodgers or whatever do, it's hard for them to sign a guy to a contract like Greinke has. So for me, don't sign the player if you plan on trading him 2 months or 2 seasons later. Same thing with Giancarlo Stanton, similar situation. So they signed him, even though he's so expensive. He's the huge part of your team. Why would you trade him away? And I get they might want to clear some of his payroll to re-sign JD Martinez, which in theory could make sense. But look, Martinez isn't going to be this good forever. I mean, he just finished his age 30 season. He's going to be 31 next year. He's going to want almost $30 million a year. And there's going to be a team out there that panics and gives it to him. The Diamondbacks do not need to be that team.
Right, and especially with the way the offensive situation is just all around the league, you had 67 players hit 25 plus home runs.
Yeah, exactly.
I know JD Martinez is always the top of that scale with 30, 35 plus, but everyone can find power. Scooter Gennett hit 25 home runs this last year.
God,
if he can do it, you can find someone to replace that offensive output. It may not be 40 home runs, but you get two guys in your lineup, they can be just as dangerous together without having to pay 30 mil a season, especially to a guy that offers pretty much no defense.
Mm.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it just doesn't make much sense to me. You could, like you said, you could find power anywhere these days. And you know what? If they want if they want somebody who's overpriced and an outfielder who plays decent defense, look, take Jacoby Ellsbury from us. You can do what you want with him. But oh god, I can't wait. I hope the Yankees trade him. Sorry, I needed to make that comment because I hate Jacoby Ellsbury so much. But to trade a guy or a player as amazing as Zach Greinke, like I said, future Hall of Famer in my opinion, should have 2 Cy Young awards, only has 1.
Mm-hmm.
Huge season for him. He had, according to Baseball Reference, he had 6.3 WAR this season. He was good this year, and it wasn't even just like he got lucky. I mean, his WHIP is only 1.07, so he wasn't letting people on base. He struck out 215. He just wasn't bad, and his FIP was a 331. So he was as good as he was advertised. So to give up a guy as good as him to re-sign an overpriced veteran who doesn't deserve the money he's going to get, I don't understand what you're doing. Especially somebody who was as vital to you as Greinke. I mean, he was their biggest piece. He was their best player other than Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
Diamondback,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah. At least it's just rumors right now. Because
Hopefully
they
it stays
still
that way.
hopefully they don't trade him. Hopefully they don't do anything with it. But if they do, it's a major mistake for them.
Absolutely. I hope they keep him. I hope he finishes his career with the Diamondbacks. I love Zach Greinke. We have his quote of the week every week. I hope he stays there. I hope the almost said the Marlins make a big mistake because that's all they've been doing lately. I hope the Diamondbacks don't make a big mistake, and I hope they keep him.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you guys have any more hot takes, you're free to share. Otherwise, we can move on to our news segment. But for news, obviously the biggest news of the week: Giancarlo Stanton, a New York Yankee. First thing I want to discuss about that, we already talked about how it was terrible for the Marlins. Now let's talk about it from the Yankees side. They got a generational power tool to fit with their other generational power tool in Aaron Judge. Now they can, they're able to clear some salary. I personally love Starlin Castro. I was terribly upset to see him go, but it was worth it for a guy like Giancarlo Stanton. They're trying to get rid of Ellsbury to clear more salary. The thing I want to point out here is people don't realize how good Brian Cashman is. Brian Cashman traded Starlin Castro, Chase Headley, and Brian Mitchell, who I freaking hated with a passion, and one decent prospect and one prospect I honestly never heard of until the trade. For Giancarlo Stanton, Cashman landed Giancarlo Stanton, and he only added $437,000 to our salary cap. People don't realize how good Brian Cashman is. He is a wizard. Anybody can lose 110 games easily, and then you have to be able to pick well, which is Theo Epstein. Theo Epstein is the master of the rebuild. I will never give him discredit. But I personally believe Brian Cashman is the best pure GM in baseball when it comes to trades and when it comes to building your franchise in the major league level. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about that?
I'd be right there with you. He's done a great job. The fact that, like you said, he didn't even add $500,000 to that salary or to their salary for this year, and you added pretty much $30 million in his. It's the fact that you're able to do all that and not effectively change your team, and you've got the prospects to be able to bring them up and to still kind of field the rest of the team, whether it's Torres at second, Torres at third, or Miguel Andujar. I know he's still there. You've got a lot going on. For what he's done in the last season and a half, he's done a great job. As much as I hate to praise the Yankees sometimes, just because they are the Yankees, it's a tremendous job. The fact that you've been able to put this team together, and especially one of my guys that I really like is Luis Severino, who a lot of people were down on and thought was going to end up as a reliever for his career, really had a breakout season. You're having that trust. And the fact that you're still getting value out of CC Sabathia was crazy. Mm-hmm. But for doing what he's done, especially you had a down season. That was about it. And the next season you have a young team, you're putting it all together, and they get to the ALCS when they're not even expected to get that far. He's done a darn good job.
Absolutely. Farrell, how do you feel? Do you think there's a better man? Do you think there's a better GM out there, or do you agree with my Cashman assessment?
I think he's up there. I think it's a good mix between rebuilding good picks and signings. He also has a lot to work with. I think he'd probably be my favorite large market GM because it's really hard to compare people on other sides of the spectrum.
It's fair enough. I mean, it is hard to compare somebody who has unlimited money resources like the Yankees to somebody who has no money resources like Billy Beane of the Oakland A's. But one thing I want to point out is the Yankees have said that they will get under the luxury tax and they will not pay any taxes in 2018. And they've lived up to it. Cashman is for the first time in his career is dealing with luxury or is dealing with money restrictions, and he's doing it with flying. He's passing with flying colors, so he's already shown that he can do it as a air quotes small market team, even though he's the farthest thing from it. So I've been thoroughly impressed with Cashman. I can't believe what he's done. The thing that another thing people don't realize about this trade is now they're going to be able to rotate Stanton and Judge between right field and DH. That's going to keep the two of them a lot healthier, especially with guys like Judge, guys like these two actually play defense. I mean, they're both making diving plays. Judge dives into the wall all the time. He flipped over the right field wall in Boston during the season. I thought he was hurt. Giving these guys half days off every other day, that's going to be huge. They're going to keep fresh. They're going to be able to stay healthy. And when the playoff time comes, and hopefully the Yankees are at the top of the AL East, they're going to be able to finally be like, all right, look, you two just go off. And they're going to be able to do it. So I personally love this move, not just because we get Giancarlo Stanton in pinstripes, but because it keeps the two of them healthy.
Well, and especially like you said, you get to keep them healthy, but you also get to keep them in the lineup. It's not like, okay, well, now we have to bench you. It's, okay, you're playing half a game. You're still in the lineup. We don't have to worry about too much. You're going to still get days off throughout the year, but you can really limit on what they're just completely out of the lineup with. The fact that, like you said, DH, yeah, it's still a stress on you for that day, but you get to ease your body just because you're only doing hitting and base running. You're not having to worry about diving and catching and reading plays, making sudden movements. It's the fact that you have that depth too. The fact that you can still keep both those bats in the lineup day in, day out, and be as scary as they're going to be between Judge, Stanton, and Sanchez. And even, I think you'll see Sanchez. I wonder if they'll play Sanchez at DH once in a while and have left field and right field with Stanton and Judge every once in a while as well, just to keep Sanchez in the lineup.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they're going to have to because Sanchez isn't a good defensive catcher, let alone, I mean, he's a catcher, and he's not going to be able to play every day, so he's going to have to be in the DH once in a while. And also the fact that he's just not good defensively, so sometimes they're going to have to throw Romine in there, who's also not good defensively, but at least he's a lot better than Sanchez. I've also read that they're looking at trading Brett Gardner now. They've talked to a couple teams during the winter meetings. I personally hope they don't. I love Gardner to death. I mean, we all saw his amazing at-bat in Game 6 of the ALCS that led to 2 runs and also helped pad the Yankees' lead. That's one of the reasons I love him. And now if you think about it, the Yankees lineup, the starting pitcher, like his mentality, I was like, all right, lead off against Brett Gardner. Let me grind out this 8-pitch at-bat. All right, now it's time for Aaron Judge. All right, now it's time for Gary Sanchez. All right, now it's time for Brett Gardner. Or now it's time for Giancarlo Stanton. All right, now it's time for Greg Bird. Now it's time for Didi. They just have their lineup is so deep, and it just never ends. And that's going to be mentally draining on a pitcher.
Especially just even before they start, it's going to put a little bit of fear into that pitcher of, I have to face all these guys twice, if not 3 times tonight.
Absolutely.
You're going to put that kind of off-putting feeling into them right away before they even take the mound.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, Greg Bird's probably going to be a 6 or 7 hitter. Greg Bird is not a 6 or 7 hitter. He's a 3, 4, or 5 hitter. And unfortunately, he's been hurt, so he hasn't been able to showcase what he truly is. But if Greg Bird's your 7 hitter, you know the rest of your lineup is stacked.
Right, you're doing something right.
You're doing something right. And the crazy part is, and one of our beat writers for the website, Jason, he pointed out the reason the Yankees are so scary now is even after a Stanton trade, they still have the minors to literally go out and get anybody else in baseball. So Stanton isn't their only move. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. Next, we're going to move on to the other trade. The other big trade of the winter meetings. It's the only 2 big trades. The other one, Marcelo Ozuna, now officially a St. Louis Cardinal.
Oh, God.
back to that whole Marlins terribleness aspect. To me, this trade isn't horrible for the Marlins. Still don't understand it. But they got Sandy Alcantara, right-handed pitcher, outfielder Magnarius Sierra, right-hander Zach Gallen, and lefty Daniel Castano. Ozuna, coming off his career year, hit 312, 37 home runs, 124 RBIs, which is
And
ridiculous.
carrying my fantasy team.
Carrying your fantasy team to that, what'd you have, like the 5-15 record?
Yeah. I had like a top 3 pick. It's okay, I got Rogers out of it.
There you go, buddy. Oh, gosh. God, I can't wait for fantasy to start back up. But
I know. I'm right there with you. I'm so excited for this upcoming season.
Oh man, we're definitely gonna have to touch on that before the podcast ends because we could talk about some fantasy for a bit. But this trade to me isn't terrible. I mean, look, the Marlins shouldn't be trading away anybody. They were truly a pitcher or two away from being a legitimate team, especially in a week NL East. So the fact that they had to trade him in general, I don't agree with, truthfully, especially somebody being paid as cheap as he was. But the fact that they did trade him, it's a decent return. I mean, Magnarius Sierra is a great young player. Sandy Alcantara is a great young player. Truthfully, I don't know as much about Zach Gallen and Daniel Castano, but I talked to one of our prospect guys on the website, and he loves Gallen. So I don't think this is as bad of a trade.
Well, I don't think it's as bad of a trade either because it's not the same generational talent that Stanton is.
Yes.
Yeah, Marcell Ozuna finally put together a full season, which was really nice to see. He's been somebody that I've watched for a while, and it's the fact that he usually fell apart in the second half. There were always questions about it, and he finally did it for a full season, and he put up some monster numbers, especially for a Miami Marlins lineup that wasn't all that great, really. You look at it, and top 4, top 5 hitters are okay and are good, and then after that, it kind of falls off the table. They really didn't have the depth. And he put up 37 home runs and 124 RBIs, and he stayed healthy and played all year. And it's, like I said, not a generational talent, so it's not as big of a loss as Stanton was, but you at least got a better return too, and you're not having to try and say, "Hey, we don't have any leverage because of the contract." So I think that's why they were able to get a better deal, is because you're not trying to give out $30 million a year of salary.
Yeah, absolutely. Pharaoh, how do you feel about it?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. The trade. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's not. I think it was a good trade for the Cardinals. I think it was an okay trade for the Marlins. I think it was a bad trade for the Pirates. Just because, man, I want to compete in my division if I was the Pirates, but now the Cardinals wanted to stock up on more outfielders, even though
they already have 800.
But now they have more. So, and no one's Ozuna. So hopefully he plays well. I hope he plays well on a contender, but I hope he doesn't play well against us. That's about it.
That was the confusing part to me, is that the Cardinals did deal Stephen Piscotty earlier today, but the fact of everything that they have, especially in prospects for the outfielders, that was the one thing that didn't make sense with this trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got so many between their minors and major leaguers that you can only field 3 at a time. And it's right now you've got Tommy Pham, Dexter Fowler, and Marcell Ozuna basically lined up for this year. And you still have Randall Grichuk, you still have Jose Martinez. Mm-hmm. And I'm really confused how they're going to deal with all of that. I feel like there's probably something still in the works that they're going to make a trade later this year. And I know I saw a rumor that they are still actually interested in trying to trade for Donaldson, but I know that the Blue Jays don't want to give him away just yet.
Yeah, from an outside standpoint, it doesn't make much sense to me either. I mean, they already had Pham. MLB.com projects the depth chart to be Pham in left, Fowler in center, and Grichuk in right. So, I mean, I don't know where you're going to throw Ozuna in on that. He's obviously the best player out of the 3, but the other 3 are also good players. I mean, so to me, it's tough for me. It makes sense adding a bat like that. The Cardinals needed the offense. Paul DeJong is no guarantee to repeat. We all know what Jed Gorko is at this point. Matt Carpenter, Colton Wong. They don't have a great offensive team. Yadier Molina's on the decline. So it makes sense to add the impact bat. But they don't have a DH in the NL. So one of these players is gone. Which is, I mean, they did just trade away Stephen Piscotty. That helps a little bit. But Pham, Fowler, and Grichuk which one are you going to move to the bench? Because you got to move one of them to the bench. Obviously not Fowler because he's being paid, I think, 20-something million a year, or close to it.
16, I believe, is
16?
what it was.
Okay. So close to my number, but he's being paid. They're not going to move him to the bench. Grichuk had a great year. Pham had a great year. Who would you move?
I think they end up trading Tommy Pham just because he's 29 years old. He'll be 30 by the start of the season. I think they're going to try and move him. Grichuk still has a lot of value, though, because of his age. Mm-hmm. You could really trade either one and then even have Pham off the bench if you wanted to, just because he has a lot of the speed, so he could end up being a base runner.
Absolutely.
You use him late game as a defensive replacement and late game runner. That's probably their best idea. Or you just kind of platoon Grichuk and Pham, because we saw Grichuk kind of have a really up and down season. Mm-hmm. Even though he went to the minors, he seemed to have figured something out, but we haven't seen him put together a full season yet. So I think we may see a platoon kind of situation there developing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I just want to point it out, one more thing that we could laugh at. I went over to the Marlins depth chart just to see what it looks like. MLB currently doesn't have somebody listed for right field. So I just wanted to point that out because that's really, really funny.
Yep.
So,
and it's not like they have the minors to really pull from either. It's going to be bad down in Miami. It's going to be miserable.
I hope we play them a lot.
Every team's hoping to play them a lot at this point. But anyway, Ozuna officially to the Cardinals. Next up, we have Shohei Ohtani's elbow. Reports came out that Ohtani actually has a damaged ulnar collateral ligament. They said reports have been a little confusing to me. I don't know if you guys have seen them all, but I've seen anywhere from he's probably going to need Tommy John surgery to the team announcing that in his physical they said that his elbow looks exactly the same as what anybody else his age would look like. What kind of blow is this to the Angels after getting after we listing them as our winner of the week? What kind of blow is this to the Angels as a team?
Well, it depends on how bad the injury is or what needs to happen, and whether or not he'll be ready for the start of the season. Where there's a lot of conflicting reports out right now, but if he needs Tommy John, of course it would be a big blow to them. But if not, I think, it's that chance. That chance is the main issue, where it changes the course of their season completely.
Absolutely. And one thing it kind of reminds me of is this whole Masahiro Tanaka's elbow with the Yankees. The Yankees have put it off so long that I have a feeling that he's going to need Tommy John at some point. If you're the Angels, do you consider just giving him the Tommy John proactively and then dealing with later? Because, look, he's only 23 this upcoming year. So keep him out for the 18-month. He'll come back in the middle of his age 24 season, or maybe they just hold him off to the age 25 season. Do you consider just proactively giving him the Tommy John if he needs it? Or do you see if it never becomes an issue and just keep going with patella injections or cortisone shots? You just keep going with that. John, how do you feel about that? What's your opinion on that?
I think it really depends on how his body reacts to that platelet-rich plasma shot that he got earlier in the week. I think it really depends on that, just because of the fact that it's so hard to say. We've seen that it's a sprain. It's not a full tear like we're used to, so he could still be okay. And like you said, reports have really been confusing. It's been anywhere from, okay, he can still start the season to he may need Tommy John surgery. It's the fact that it's such a wide range of variants there that we really don't know what to expect. I mean, I've seen some of the reports I've seen that he could still start, that they still have to be careful with it because any more damage could lead to it, but it's not, or could lead to Tommy John surgery, but not just yet. I think it would be tough to lose him for a season after you spent all this time in campaigning for him. But the fact that, like you said, he could come back in middle of his age 24 season and you still have him cheap as all hell. The fact that you're paying him a rookie salary and you basically paid $23 million for a possible $200 million value, you're not really losing much there in terms of money. So you're not in any danger of that, of, hey, we're losing his salary all year. I feel like you've got to wait and see what his body acts like, but just play it safe. There's no reason to throw him out there and risk that damage to where when you finally start to compete, you lose him.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's really no reason for the Angels to risk losing Otani. So I think they're just gonna wait and see with the elbow.
Yep.
But yeah, but anyway, moving on to our next piece. We touched on it a little bit before. We're gonna touch on it now. The Yankees are looking to add more pitching. They've touched on Greinke, they've touched on Fulmer, they've touched on O'Corbin. To me, the most interesting case is the fact that they've inquired about Garrett Cole of the Pirates. Farrell, I know you're a Pirates fan, so this is going to be a lot of you talking.
Yeah.
I would personally love Garrett Cole. Ace stuff, almost won the Cy Young one year, had a down year ever since. I truly think that wild card loss affected him a lot mentally, and it kind of took a little confidence away. How would you feel about losing Otani, or excuse me, not losing Otani, losing Cole? And what kind of package do you think he'd require?
I'd be fine with it. It just depends on what the Pirates are doing. The Pirates are right now in between, like, oh, should we go for it? Or, oh, should we not? Should we just blow it all up? And if they trade Cole, I feel like we could still compete for a wild card, mainly because of the young rotation and if Glasnow decides to get it together. But I'd be all for it, depending on the package. Where I think it would be good for Cole to play for his team growing up, for his favorite team and everything. But the thing is, he's on a great deal for the next few years of arbitration. Since right now it's only $3 million a year, it could get up to $7 million, maybe $10 million. But I feel like a package of Clint Frazier and some other prospects would be really good. I'd be okay with it.
You don't want to take on Jacoby Ellsbury?
I'm good.
You sure you don't want to pay a fourth outfielder $22 million a year? I think it's worth it.
I don't think we can afford that for our entire payroll altogether. But I feel like it would be Clint Frazier, maybe a top pitching prospect from you guys, because Cole he's a great pitcher. He could probably do wonders with the Yankees.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a decent package. It wouldn't be anything the level of Stanton should have gotten or others would get. Yeah. But I feel like Frazier and then maybe like Sheffield or something.
Yeah, to me, a package for a starter of Cole is interesting because he is an NL pitcher going to the AL, especially going into a park like the AL East where where it's all about home run hitting. So to see him come there after a couple of down years, correct me if I'm wrong, but he does have 2 years of team control left, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he's going into his second year of ARB eligibility, excuse me. Arbitration, that was a nice one. So he is controlled for 2 more years, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So he does require a decent back. But to me, Justice Sheffield, I've seen comparisons of him as like a CC Sabathia light. And if we can get that for a long time, that's great. But the Yankees are in win-now mode. So trading for a pitcher like Cole, I think that would make them the favorites for the World Series. I personally already think they are with that lineup and their 4 starters they have. They don't even have a 5th starter right now, which to me, and they're already second favorites. Crazy to me. So once they get a 5th starter, I truly think that they'll become favorites. John, how do you feel about that?
I'd agree with you on that. They're definitely going to be the favorites if they can land a big name for a starting pitcher, just because you add so much more depth to that team. Mm-hmm. I think Cole's the likely of all people to get there. I know they want Fulmer, but the Tigers aren't willing to sell him for cheap just because he's been so good. He's got a lot more team control, and I don't think the Yankees are willing to pay that much. I don't think they want a guy that's young that can pitch, but I don't think they're going to want to pay what the Tigers are going to ask from them, just because of the fact that they want to keep part of the core around, and they've been able to do that so far, surprisingly. And I know they don't want to deal Frazier as much as they could. They really don't want to, but if they're going to get somebody like Cole, it's definitely worth it. Just because, like you said, they're in win-now mode. They've got that opportunity. The fact that you reached the ALCS and you were 1 win away from the World Series when they were expected to be a 500 or maybe a little bit above team, and you do what they did. You have to take the opportunity and run with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one of the old adages that the guys on our website always say is they're like or parades are greater than prospects. So in hindsight, you don't win the World Series. Yeah, it's like, well, why'd you dish out the future for a pitcher? It didn't then who cares about the prospects, right? I mean, look, we all know Clint Frazier's bat speed is legendary, and he could potentially be a 20 home run guy in the majors. Good speed. Sheffield, like I said, he's been compared to CC Sabathia Light. But if we can trade them for the pitcher like Cole, who gives us that World Series title, I'm all for it. Originally, I'm going to be upset. I love the two guys. When we got Clint Frazier in the original Miller trade, I was super ecstatic. Now it's terrible to see that he has no place to the team because of freaking Jacoby Ellsbury. You guys have learned by now how much I hate Ellsbury. So that's an interesting case. Personally, my top choice would be Michael Fulmer. He requires the most, though. I saw that the Tigers asked for Gleyber Torres, which the Yankees have said that he's absolutely untouchable. I truly think he's penciled in as our starting second baseman now because of the Castro trade, so he's not going anywhere. The one pitcher who, bear with me for a second, it would never happen in a million years, but the one pitcher I would love for the Yankees to check in on is Marcus Stroman of the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I could see that. He would fit well for them because he's a ground ball pitcher. He's not an ace, and they don't need an ace. But I don't see the Blue Jays of all teams trading in division at least, especially
absolutely.
with they've got a lot of prospects, but most of them are position players, and especially to the Yankees, I don't see them doing that. I could see why you'd want him to because he's a good leader. He's a great pitcher, not over dominating, but he's going to go out there and put you in a position to win every time he does.
Exactly.
So,
and I would love to see that level of enjoyment for the sport in the clubhouse. I mean, every time we watch this kid pitch, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you guys watched him for the WBC, for USA. Mm-hmm. He was incredible. I mean, he was throwing strikeouts, striking people out, and he was just going nuts on the mound, having fun with it. I love that level of excitement. We don't really see that much anymore. I mean, you got a guy like Zach Greinke who constantly keeps a straight face. You see guys like that. I want to see some excitement. I mean, you guys saw how the Astros were on the World Series. They were jumping around on the field when they were winning. They were having fun with it. I mean, even the Yankees in the wild card, they were jumping around, everything. It's more fun when the players have fun.
Yeah.
So to inject a guy with his level of excitement into any clubhouse, I would. That's great, and I would love him for the Yankees, even though it'll never happen.
Well, and a quick tangent on that, mentioning the fun. I think we're seeing a shift in culture. We've seen it over the last year or so. We've had a lot less of the baseball police, and it's really nice to see that these guys can show the emotion, especially just because it's so tense up there. Even in a regular season game, it's you versus the pitcher, no one else until that ball is hit. But it's man versus man, and you've got your chance. I'm sorry, I like people celebrating when you hit a home run because think about it. You're at bat 600 times in a year and you hit 20 home runs. That's not a great conversion rate, but it's just that fact that I dominated you this time. You're probably going to get me 5 more times this season, but this was my time here. I love the fact of bat flips and celebrating and all the emotion that players are starting to show, and we're kind of getting away from that. It has to be serious. Act like you've been there before. You get that emotion out, and it's nice to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I love seeing players bat flip. Obviously, you don't like seeing it when you're the team that gave up the home run. But when your team hits a home run, like Jose Bautista's bat flip in the playoffs where he just literally threw the bat, that was insane. I loved it. Little showboaty, but you got to give him credit for it. I mean, huge moment, comes through in the clutch. People don't realize how hard it is to hit a home run. I mean, the ball's coming at you at 95 miles an hour. You have to turn on it. You hit a dinger. You should celebrate. You should be happy with yourself. And I love that you mentioned, like, for that one moment, you beat the pitcher, when more likely than not, they're going to beat you. So that was a really cool moment. That was a really cool thing you said. I completely agree with you on that. So now we're going to move on to our team of the week. We have Jonathan here for a reason. He is a huge White Sox fan. Our team of the week is the White Sox, one of the best minors in the league. Love their trade with the Yankees last year, so they're one of my favorite teams because they gave us that good of a bullpen. We mentioned we're going to talk about a major league player right now who's not even on the team. Manny Machado has been mentioned as a trade rumors. The White Sox have been said as the most aggressive team to land him. I don't really get it, especially because of the White Sox are still a ways off from contending. John, what do you see in that? Why do you think that they're trying to trade for him?
So I think they're going to. I think they have the ability to trade for him for one because their minor league is so deep. He's going to be He'll turn 26 during the 2018 season, so he's still got a lot left in his prime. And I think the fact that they know the Orioles don't have a lot of leverage. He's already said he wants to become a free agent. He won't sign with the Orioles. And if you look at, let me pull it up here, but if you look at their payroll for the next few years, the White Sox really don't have a lot. Mm-hmm. And I know you say they're a ways away, but you look right now, you've got Carlos Rodon if he can stay healthy. You've got Giolito, you've got Lopez, you've got Kopech, who they've already said could break camp with them, and we'll kind of talk more about that later. But you've got almost your whole rotation set, and you've got Eloy Jimenez, who's possibly going to be up here later. And as we all know, I mean, look at Trout, look at some of the best players in the league. I think Theo said it a couple of years back that when you get a great talent, they will push your timeline forward quickly. They will force them to come up. It will force your team to change. Everything changes around the team when you get that franchise-changing player, whether it's from a trade, whether it's from your minor leagues. And I think the fact that they have so many options in their minor leagues right now, and it's as good as Machado is, the Orioles have no leverage. So you've got to kind of take that chance. It's almost similar to the Marlins. I don't think the Orioles will be that bad at the trade, but it's that situation of we may as well put it out there because it doesn't hurt. You've got that opportunity to get a guy before he hits free agency with very few contracts on the books. You may as well take that risk.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And look, I would love to see Machado and the White Sox give them just an already superstar to help build that young core. But in the time, like, do you really risk trading for somebody who's going to make you take a lot out of the farm system? Do you really risk trading for him and then he doesn't re-sign? Because Machado's probably going to want to be a free agent to see what he can get. Even if he wants to stay in Chicago, ends up wanting to stay in Chicago, he could become a free agent just to have teams bid on him and build up Chicago's price. So,
absolutely. I agree with you there. And I think that's something that they want to see what's there. And I don't think they pull the trigger unless they get the guarantee from him of, look, this is what we have laid out for you. This is what we're willing to pay you. Would you take it and stay with us and not even hit free agency?
Yeah, to me it's interesting. And one thing I saw is, I've been making jokes about it a lot because I would love to see it happen, is Ken Rosenthal mentioned that the White Sox could trade for him and then flip him to the Yankees. I don't know why he mentioned the Yankees specifically, because they could technically get him and flip him to anybody. I doubt that happens, because I feel like if that did happen, MLB would be launching a quick investigation into collusion. But it was an interesting possibility to me, because they technically could. I mean, it makes sense. Every Sox love the Yankees farm, dating back to the Quintana talks, even the Sale talks when they first touched on that, which what led to the Blake Rutherford being in the deal for Frazier, Canely, and Robertson. So they're obviously a perfect trading partner. The Orioles have said they won't trade with the Yankees. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think they could just be trading for him to flip him to get the prospects they like from the Yankees?
I definitely think it's up there, just because we know, like I kind of mentioned earlier with the Blue Jays, the Orioles aren't willing to trade within their division, especially the Yankees of all people. It makes very little sense for them to do it, especially to the team that would have the best chance at re-signing him right here and now if they were to get him. So it's definitely a possibility. I just don't know how all that would play out, because it would make sense for the Yankees to do it, to get that third baseman and make that lineup even deeper, and I can't even fathom just that lineup every single night. That's video game stuff right there, but there's a lot of levels to it, and I think there's just a lot of issues that would come into play of trying to get that deal done, because as the White Sox, you're going to want to make sure that you are getting back as much, if not more, for what you traded. And that's really where the issue comes into play, is you don't want to give up a lot and then not get the equal payment back.
Yeah, that obviously makes a lot of sense. And like you said, that would be a video game type lineup. It would just pretty much be Brian Cashman turning on force trades in the actual MLB. So the odds of that are very low. Farrell, you've been kind of quiet for a bit. What are your takes on this?
The entire Machado situation is really interesting because of what you guys said with the fact that he'll be a free agent really soon, and how you pretty much have to, if you trade for him, unless you're a contender who just needs him for, I don't know, thinking you're going to win the World Series this year, you have to talk with them and be like, hey, are you going to accept an extension here? Everything. Or
Agree.
I feel like if they trade for him, they'll keep him because they have a lot of good pieces coming up soon, like Kopech, among others, where the team's going to be scary in the future if they get Machado, and they can give up parts of that or parts of that farm because, I mean, they have the best in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's definitely interesting. If the White Sox can get Machado and do sign into extension, I love that move. I love that move for the city, for the second the lesser team of the city of Chicago. Hate to say it. Truthfully, you're one of the first White Sox fans I met. I met one before you, and he couldn't tell me who one of their starting pitchers were. So I don't know if you want to say fan, but I don't know any White Sox fans other than you. So I would love that trade for the White Sox. Whether they get him and then flip him to the Yankees right away, I don't see that happening as much as I would love for it to happen. But I just don't see it happening. If they get Machado, I feel like it's going to be for the long haul.
Well, and they've definitely got the possibility because if you look at their 2019 season, the only thing they really have on the books as a possibility is Tim Anderson, and James Shields is there, I think, with an option along with Nate Jones. So you really don't have any guaranteed money. That's all of $20 million right now between those three players. So, and they'll spend when they want to, the White Sox. Everybody says they're a small market team, but they've been up there in the top 12, top 10 salaries for the year at different times. So they'll spend when they want to, and they'll have the opportunity to do it, especially with a lot of the young talent coming up. I just don't know if they want to kind of take away from the farm system that they're still building.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because they are considered by Rosenthal. He said they are the aggressively pursuing him. They're the favorites as of now. So it's going to be interesting to see if they get him. So moving on from him a little bit, right for this next part, we're going to talk about it if they don't get him, or we can also talk about where they do get him. Where do you think they finish this year in the AL Central? You have that listed as some of your notes. Where do you think they finish?
I think they finish somewhere around third place, just because it's going to be the Indians. I've got the Twins coming in at 2, and with the Royals and the Tigers doing both of their tear it completely down situations, the White Sox have that ability to kind of do what the Cubs did and be around 500, and the arrow starts ticking up.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're going to see Eloy in the last 2 months, you're going to have Kopech probably early on this season. If he doesn't break camp, I expect him up in the first month or so. But with the Royals losing Moustakas, Kane, and Hosmer more than likely, and the Tigers having very little on their major league team, they've got a chance to finish around 500 just because of the way that division is right now.
Yeah, I think you would have to try really hard to finish below the Royals and Tigers in that division. I feel like the White Sox are on the up and up right now.
Yeah, they're definitely in a position to finish third. If they start finishing third, if they do finish third, do you think it's because they're starting to take that step forward, or do you just think it's because the Royals and Tigers took such a huge step back?
I think it's a bit of both, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because of the fact that, like I said, you could have Kopech early on in the season. You'll have Jimenez later this year just because I think he's going to push the envelope and really make them call him up, kind of like Moncada did this past season.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what else comes up, whether it's somebody else they get in a trade, whether it's Manny Machado. Even if you add Machado, I don't think you're going to get past the Twins and the Indians. But you're going to have that, like I said, that arrow is really going to start pointing up. It'll be interesting to see a guy like Nicky Delmonico, what he can do over a full season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like Michael said, it's going to be really hard to finish below the Tigers and the Royals this year just because they've got very little on the field that's going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Third place makes the most sense just because they have the little bit of talent there. And the like Michael said, the Tigers and Royals, you have to try to finish below them at this point. So, and one of the players we have listed down, one of my favorite players in the league, Jose Abreu. What do you think happens with him?
I thought originally he might get dealt, but really delving into it and what he brings to the White Sox is much more valuable than what he can bring to any other team in the league.
Absolutely.
Not because of the fact that the White Sox are devoid of talent, but it's the fact that he's going to reach his 25 home runs and 100 RBI, and unfortunately that's not so special nowadays. You had 23 players last year reach 100 RBIs, 34 in the league reach 90. So you've got at least one person essentially on every team reaching that 90 RBI mark, and you had 67 players hit 25 plus last year. So his numbers aren't all that special anymore. It's great, but especially for a first baseman, you could end up taking 35 home runs and a 280 average and be okay. You could get a Hosmer, you could get, I mean, look at the guys we saw break out last year between Logan Morrison and Justin Smoke. Sometimes you just have to wait and take a chance on somebody.
Yeah.
But Jose Abreu also brings that Cuban veteran leadership to the young guys like Luis Robert, Yohan Moncada, all these guys that they've kind of been selling on of, hey, we've got this young core. Jose Abreu is your veteran. He's a guy that can help you assimilate into the city, get used to the major leagues. He's that vet you can turn to. One of the biggest things that I thought was very cool this season was Jose Abreu was actually the person who picked up Yohan Moncada when he came into the major leagues. He picked him up from the airport and brought him here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that veteran guy that's willing to go out there and build that trust with the players, build that relationship. And I don't think that's as valuable to a competing team that you're going to trade him to.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. Farrah, how do you feel about it?
I don't know how much you get from him, from other teams. Like you said, you got to find a good partner for the deal to get enough prospects and stuff out of it. But thing is, the rebuild isn't like far enough away from being finished for you to deal him to, where he could still help the team whenever the rebuild finishes, which should probably be in the next year or two, whenever everyone hits their potential.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like you said, he brings that extra value that you can't quantify with a stat or with a number. And, I mean, they got Luis Roberts. I just don't see them trading away such a good piece, not even just for the team, but for the franchise as a whole. I can't really see him being traded.
Well, and that's especially, you don't want to pull a bait and switch on your players as well, of promising them Jose Abreu and Yohan Moncada being there when you reach there, especially for Luis Robert. You don't want to do that bait and switch and all of a sudden players reach in the major leagues and he's not getting everything you promised, especially when it comes to veteran leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that makes complete sense. I do think he's going to stay. I know they were talking to the Red Sox, but I think he's staying, and I'm sure that makes you happy.
And I think a lot of it, too, is you're just not going to get that return. You're not going to get top prospects for him because he is a first baseman, and they seem to be everywhere nowadays that you can plug anyone in to play first base and you'll be all right.
Absolutely. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, there is a chance they do trade him. I hope they don't. I hope he's the White Sox. I hope he's on the White Sox for a long time. One quick question, side note. When you when you put in like singular terms, is it a White Sox? Like I never really knew.
It technically would be a White Sox, yes. I've always said a White Sox player because just saying a White Sox sounds so odd to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always find to find a player of the White Sox or White Sox player or White Sox and then their position.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so odd to say White Sox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I've been thinking that because it's like, obviously like a Yankee or an A or a Tampa Bay Ray or something like that, like
or a Pirate. Yeah.
A Pirate. Yeah, you just I never knew with the Red Sox and the White Sox because I just always wanted to know. Now I'm glad we got that cleared up.
Also, why do we have two teams named after Sox in our league?
Well,
not just one, but two.
So, do you know originally how the White Sox name got started?
Yeah. I know the history. I just thought it was funny.
I do not, actually, and I'm very interested to hear.
So originally they were the White Stockings, and rather than typing out Chicago White Stockings every single time in the papers way back in the day, they wanted to find a way of shortening it to make it more headline friendly. And the newspapers actually started with SOX for the Sox rather than putting Stockings, and it just stuck. So it kind of continued from there, and they just moved on to it.
I actually
Was the
never knew
shorter.
that. Never knew that. That's pretty cool though. But anyway, another player that could potentially get dealt, Avisail Garcia. Came out of nowhere this year. He was such a good player, huge for fantasy. What are your feelings about him? What do you think they do with him?
This is one of those situations that originally it was the A's were very interested in him, but getting Steven Piscotty, I think, makes a huge change. I know the Brewers were interested, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me because they've got a slew of outfield prospects as well. Mm-hmm. But I think he ends up staying because of the fact that I think teams want to see more from him. He had a great year last year, slashing 330, 380, and 506 for his slugging. But the real peripheral that stood out to me and I think a lot of other people is at 392 BABIP, the batting average of balls in play. And it's not like he's a speedster. He's not a Billy Hamilton where he's going to beat out every ground ball he hits. Mm-hmm. He had 121 singles last year. I think he stays. Yeah. And he only had, I believe, 19 home runs or something like that. And I believe he stays. If he shows a lot in the first half of the season, he could be dealt. But I think teams are hesitant to really give up a lot just for the simple fact of could it just be a random one-season outbreak?
Yeah, he was always interesting to me. Farrah, how do you feel about him?
I feel like to really gauge for this, I'd wait till trade deadline. Wait until then to trade him or flip him or not. Because if it is a fluke, if you see aspects of that, you could still flip him for some good pieces. But if he isn't, he'll be a good piece with the rebuild finishing.
Yeah, he's an interesting case because, like you said, he just randomly came out of nowhere. I don't think he's gonna get dealt either. I think there needs to be. I think there needs to be another season of him before he gets dealt. If he does start hot again in 2017, then I have a feeling he'll get traded because then people are like, wow, maybe he just took a while and he finally found it. So he's an interesting case. I know he became a really big deal for our fantasy team this year, for our fantasy league this year.
Yeah.
Another player you have here, we talked about him a lot. Michael Kopech. He's an interesting guy. He was in the Chris Sale trade. Everybody knows how hard he throws. I'm pretty sure he tied Chapman's record for fastest pitch thrown professionally. I believe he did. He's a guy with a ton of upside. What do you feel about Kopech? How do you feel about him, John?
I absolutely love the kid, and I think he's going to end up being the steal of that deal with Boston. As good as Moncada has that ceiling, I think he's going to be the steal just because of how valuable pitching is. And the Red Sox seem to give up on him because of the fact that he had some issues with teammates there. They thought he was a bit of a hothead, and they didn't know what to expect from him. But I love the kid. He's got a plus fastball that is going to play up here in the majors. I know everybody was freaked out about the 110 miles an hour, but that was one of the smaller balls just trying to see how hard they could throw. Everybody's saying he can hit 102, 103. I think he ended up tuning it down a little bit at the end of the season in the minors. He was hitting 99 and sticking around there. Because if you look at his first half numbers, he had in the first half where he was in Double-A, he put up 84 strikeouts to 40 walks in half a season. And the second half, he really made a difference by keeping the strikeout right where they were, but he dropped off 15 more walks, and he actually made 3 starts in Triple-A, so you're kind of facing more major league level talent there. And the fact that you're able to cut down on your walks made a huge difference for him. Just the fact of being able to hit 99, 100. We've seen what guys like that, such as Noah Syndergaard, Aroldis Chapman, can do in this league. You can have it, and he's got some movement on it. It's not like it's a flat fastball at all. And he really started to improve his changeup. He really started to improve his curveball with his control. That's really been the biggest thing for him is his curveball control and being able to get it inside the zone. That's where a lot of the walks came from, is he couldn't get that final out pitch to go through.
Yeah, I'm going to say I agree a lot. Kopech's probably my favorite prospect in baseball right now. But it's pretty much a trend with flamethrower pitchers in the minors to struggle with walks because control is always a big issue with prospects. But it's just going to be telling whenever he gets up to see if he can work the control because there's been other top prospects like Glass now who haven't been able to in the majors so far.
And especially when they look great in Double A and Triple A, they're not able to hit that final step right away.
Yeah, makes them feel like 4A players, stuck between.
Yeah, I love Kopech. I can't wait to see what this kid can do. And my favorite thing is how one of his goals is to throw the fastest pitch ever. And I know he said that before the season, and like you said, he started slowing down a bit. So I don't know if he actually gets there, but I can't wait to see what this kid can do in the majors.
I think he could. I could see it being a Verlander situation where, okay, I'm going to start out a little bit lower just to get, especially now, I think he was lowering it just to have that a little bit more control and get used to it, rather than having that full adrenaline pumping all 7, 8, 9 innings, whatever he pitches. But I think it's also just learning where the strike zone is and how to toy with hitters a bit more. I do expect him to be up there every once in a while. Just that fact of getting to that 7th, 8th inning and you're still throwing 99, blowing it by guys, and they have no answer for it. And I think the biggest thing is to watch this spring training is, does he break camp? Rick Hahn has already said that he'll have the possibility and he's got a shot for it because they have no reason to hold him down. He was able to dominate in Double A, which is where you face some of the better hitters just because they're on their way up rather than some of these quadruple A players that are kind of still sitting around waiting for their call, whether it's an injury or something else in the majors. So it'll be fun to watch, especially I think that's probably going to be the biggest headline this spring training when we get there.
Yeah, I hope he comes up. I hope he makes the opening day roster, both for my fantasy team and also because I think it would be great to see him in the league. And I feel like he's going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope he does. And now, speaking of opening day, you have it written down here. What's your projected lineup for the White Sox? Like, how do you see them breaking camp?
Right now, personally, I think Nicky Delmonico, as much as he has the possibility of playing third base because he has had some time there, I think they play him in left. Hopefully, it's going to be a race between Charlie Tilson and Adam Engel in center field, but I think they're going to end up with Charlie Tilson if he can stay healthy. The guy that they acquired from the Cardinals, I think, year and a half back for Zach Duke. He's got a lot of speed, some great contact from what I've heard, not a lot of power, but his biggest issue is being able to stay on the field. Adam Engel was great for defense, but he hit below 200 in his time here last year, so I don't see him getting that opening day spot unless something happens to Tilson again. Yeah, I've got Avi Garcia starting in right. He's obviously going to be there unless he's dealt, but I don't think, like we talked before, I don't think he's dealt until the trade deadline somebody comes calling desperate. And then around the infield, I've got Yolmer Sanchez at third base, Tim Anderson at short, Yohan Moncada at second, and Jose Abreu at first. I'll be interested to see what Anderson and Moncada can do together in a full season as a double play combo. I think that'll be a lot of fun just between both of them being super fast, being able to cover a lot of ground. And then I've obviously Wellington Castillo, or Beef as a lot of people like to call him. You got him at catcher, and he's the best catcher that the White Sox have had since AJ Pierzynski. You really look at the numbers, the White Sox haven't thrown out more than 28% of their base runners in a season for a long time. The last 4 seasons, they haven't gone higher than 28, and Castillo threw out 45% of his base runners last year alone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been bad.
That's going to be a luxury the White Sox are very much going to enjoy. And looking at this lineup, it's a pretty decent lineup for a team that's still going to be rebuilding. You're right. It's going to be exciting to see what Moncada and Anderson can do. We all know what Jose Abreu is about. Wellington Castillo, it's going to be nice to see him go to a team where he doesn't have to worry as much and he can just play the sport of baseball. I like Delmonico a lot. I picked him up in fantasy. Unfortunately, I had to drop him back because one of my players came off the DL. But hopefully I'm going to be able to pick him back up. I like him a lot. So I'm excited to see what this team can do.
Yeah. Also, how do you think the rotation stacks up?
Right now, I think you're the White Sox fifth pitcher is going to be James Shields.
Mm.
I think you're going to have Rodon, as long as he starts the season healthy, you'll have him at number 1. You're probably going to have, what am I thinking? I'm blanking. I just totally spaced. You're going to have Lopez. You're going to have Giolito in there. And if Kopech breaks, you're going to have him somewhere in there, and then James Shields. I think James Shields will end up being the 5 just because of the fact we've seen so much bad pitching out of him. It's really hard to want to place him at the top of the roster just because it really doesn't matter except for about that first week of the season, just because everybody starts fitting into their rotation spots and really plays with matchups as well, depending on the off days. But I think the only one that's really going to be a true veteran outside of Rodon will be Shields. You're going to have Lopez and Giolito, and I do think Kopech starts with the White Sox at the beginning of the season. They don't have much else to prove, and you may as well get him some major league innings. Get him kind of working that regular 5-day schedule here with the team, and then that way you can shut him down at the end of this season since you know you're not going to be competing for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the lack of expectations are really good for him, too. They don't expect the White Sox to make the playoffs, so he can just run wild, learn the game.
Yeah, I think that they'll be smart to have Kopech start. And you have written down here, this is the rotation of the future, and fans could see it for the first time. Yeah, they'll all be young, and yeah, they might need a little bit of time, but they're still going to be able to see the future. It's going to be exciting.
Well, and especially, too, I think by the end of the year, we could end up seeing one of my favorite guys in fantasy right now to keep an eye on, especially as a prospect, is Alec Hansen. He's one of my favorites. A lot of people are sleeping on him because he didn't really have – the White Sox don't ever get the media coverage that they sometimes deserve for some of their players. But he's a guy that you have to keep an eye on because he was one of the most dominant guys in all of minor leagues last year. And he's absolutely exciting. He reached Double-A last year. I think he could end up being a August or September call-up right around that time, middle of August. Because last year, let's see, here it is. 141 innings. He put up 191 strikeouts with a 216 average against.
Oh, man.
And he's got a 60.6 ground ball to air out, so he's 60% of the time he's getting ground outs in the minors. And with those 191 strikeouts, he only had 51 walks. So he's able to limit base runners. I love his fastball. He's got a good changeup that he's been working on. And his second pitch, really his second best behind the 70 grade slider, is a 70 grade fastball is a 60 grade slider, which sits about mid 80s. So him throwing 94 to 97, and all of a sudden you get this late movement on a mid 80s slider. It's really hard to catch up on, especially if you're sitting back waiting for it. You don't know what's going to happen because you can't sit back too much just because of the speed he's got on that fastball.
Yeah, now that you're saying that, I'm going to start looking into him more because I've been trying to get more into like other teams' prospects. And it's upsetting that some of these teams don't get the coverage. Like you said, the White Sox don't get the coverage they should sometimes. So hearing that, I'm definitely going to be looking at him for a fantasy this year. Potential trade, team player to sleep on. Now,
yeah, and it's just going to be crazy to me because when's the last time we've really seen any team set a rotation through their minors like that, especially in a rebuild? Usually, so far for the Astros and the Cubs, it's been all position players. Mm-hmm. And the White Sox have the position players, or they're coming at least. But before they even get here, you could have your rotation, and they're all going to be cheap. You won't have to go out and pay $200 million to a starting pitcher just to fill out your rotation. Yeah,
exactly. And then that means they'll be able to focus on something more important, like the bullpen, where they can just dump $200 million and get three top relievers when they're ready to compete. So they're doing it a different way. Like you said, we're used to seeing people rebuild with position players, Cubs, Astros, Yankees. Those are the ones on the top of my head. So it's going to be interesting to see a team rebuilds actually through their rotation.
Well, they still and they have the position players. But the first thing that is getting set is that rotation, which is odd.
Absolutely.
But it'll be nice. It'll be fun to watch just because that rotation itself is going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. And one player who's not slept on at all, Eloy Jimenez. Huge player, everybody knows him. Was part of the Quintana trade. another player that the White Sox had to trade, the Cubs had to trade so they could get another player for their run. What do you expect from Eloy? What do you expect from him in 2018?
In 2018, I think we're going to see about 150, 160 at-bats. I think he ends up pushing the envelope of the White Sox. I don't think they can hold him down as much as they would like to, just because of the fact that with Moncada, at least you were able to have that excuse of, okay, he still needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on his bat control, taking a few more walks, not striking out as much. Eloy, on the other hand, is just so much different because of the fact that he's able to draw a walk. He's able to do everything you want to have him do offensively, and his defense is still pretty good, as we saw in the WBC a couple of years back. He's got the range and he's got the arm. There's the only thing he's really lacking is speed, but I expect him in his prime to be a 30 home run, 110 RBI guy with about a 280 average. This year, I don't expect much outside of maybe a late July, early August call-up.
I mean, look, and like you said, in his prime, but if they call him up now, his prime will be when they're ready to compete. Mm-hmm. So that's a good move for them. Give him a taste in the majors. Let him figure it out. Moncada didn't play that well when he first got called up, and then he started looking better towards the end of the season. If Eloy can come up and struggles, the best thing you can do to a player is say, just adjust. Don't worry about your expectations. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Just take the time and adjust. If Jimenez can come up, no expectations, he'll be given the best chance to succeed sooner rather than later. So I'm excited for this kid. He's been traded in our fantasy league a million times because everybody wants him in deals. So he's an exciting player to look out for. Another player. Go ahead.
I think he's close to Rogers in fantasy league, but I still think Rogers was on 5 more teams.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers I think was on every team in our fantasy league last year just because he's one of those players everybody wants.
Oh, absolutely. I've got him in our league. I've had him for 2 years now in one of my dynasty leagues just because we're going into our 3rd season, so I've had him the whole time of the league, and I've been trying to get Eloy so bad from the owner, and I want him so bad, but he's going to be fun to watch just because of that raw power that he has, the fact that he was able to knock out a minor league stadium light. That's no easy task for anyone to do.
That was awesome. I loved that video.
Well, and especially you put him in that lineup in that park. I wonder what his ceiling really is just because you're going to play A1 games in White Sox Park.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't wait to see Eloy Jimenez up. And another prospect I'm really excited about, Zach Collins. I like him a lot. He didn't hit that well this year. I see you have written down that you want to talk about that. What do you, even despite the down year, what do you feel about Zach Collins?
I'm not worried about it. I saw a lot of panic during the year because, oh no, he's only hitting 200. He's hitting just barely above the Mendoza line, and we're not seeing anything offensively out of this bat that we drafted to be a bat. But the biggest knock against Zach Collins going into the year was the fact that he had issues with defense. And the White Sox want to keep him as a catcher. They don't want to have a Kyle Schwarber situation where we have the bat, but where the heck do we play him? They have the designated hitter spot if they really wanted to. But I know Zach Collins himself has come out ever since he was drafted of, I want to play catcher. I know I can do it. I'm willing to put in the time. And he's shown it, and I think that's why the White Sox nor the fans should be worried, is they know the bat's going to play. If you look at his numbers this last year, in single A, where you're expected to kind of dominate, he had a 17.8% walk percentage to go with 27% K rate. So, yeah, he strikes out, but he's almost walking 20% of the time. And in 12 games at Double A, his strikeout and walk percentage was the same at 24.4. So he can see the ball. He's just got to connect with it and get his swing down. But they're so much more worried about his defense and being able to stay behind the plate every single day where he's not going to kill you. Because he can clearly hit. The kid can flat out hit, and he knows how to work the strike zone.
It's just a matter of actually getting the results that you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. I think it's the fact that he's putting so much time into defense, he's not worrying about his swing, nor are the White Sox, because he's shown that he knows where the ball is, that he knows where his strike zone is and where he's comfortable. It's just more the fact of, okay, let's get it going again. And I don't think it's going to be because we've seen it before with who's the Red Sox prospect I'm thinking of, catcher, and I'm absolutely spacing on it.
I have no idea.
I don't know, but I think it's the fact that the Blake Swihart, there it is.
Yep.
He was one of those situations of we know he can hit, we just got to get him to work on his defense. But the fact that Zach Collins can clearly walk, he's always going to be on base. Even if he ended up hitting 250 in a season, especially you could have a 360 on base, I think they're gladly going to take it if you can get the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that, like I said, everybody saw the slash line, but they didn't really dig into the story of what's really going on here.
Yeah,
all the coaches are focused on defense because it's so hard to find a catcher that can do both offense and defense well.
Yeah.
It's either one or the other.
I feel like pitch framing is a very important thing too with catchers mostly, where if you have a great defensive catcher, I feel like if they're at least manageable on offense, they're a good catcher in the league.
Yeah, I like Collins a lot. I'm excited to see him come. I'm excited to see him grow, and I'm not worried about his bat either. And I mean, a lot of the times in the minors, the results aren't what matters. What matters is the intangibles. Like, does he walk a lot? Does he strike out too much? How does his swing look? The results aren't the only thing that matters. I mean, Mike Piazza didn't hit home runs in the minors, became the best home run hitting catcher of all time. So the results aren't the only thing that matters, and I think a lot of fans need to realize that. So I'm excited to see this kid grow. I'm excited to see what he can turn into.
Exactly, and it's the fact that he does have that high walk rate, which is very nice because he's still going to be on base. He's going to be a threat regardless. And if you may as well try and reach his full potential. Yeah, you probably could have rushed him through a little bit faster and let him just play up on his bat and kind of have a Gary Sanchez feel. But if you can take a little bit away from the bat for now and get him to really improve that defense and get an all-star catcher, you're not going to get Buster Posey numbers where he's hitting 330, 320 in a season, but you get a 270 with 25 home runs, you're gladly going to take that, especially out of catcher position, which is so hard to find nowadays. And he's one of my favorite guys that you could probably buy for cheap in fantasy, just for the simple fact that people are going to look at the slash line and go, okay, I don't know if I really like this anymore, especially as a catcher. Do I want to hold on to it?
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think there's no need to panic with him at all. I'm excited to see what this kid can do, and he is a buy low option in fantasy now. Because like you said, a lot of people are going to see that slash line and be like, I'm gonna stay away from it. But because of his walk rate, his OBP was still just above 800. Or not his OBP, his OPS. That would be an insane OBP. His OPS was above 800 slightly. So he still got some results.
In single A, he had a 223 average, but even then, you're looking at his OBP, it's 365. And even though it's a small sample of 12 games in double A with a 235 average, he's above 400. So he's got that extra level to him to where you know he's still going to play every day.
Yeah, so he's an interesting player. I'm super, super excited for him. So, but that's all we have for today. That's all we have written down. Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for being here. I loved having you on tonight to talk some White Sox.
Thanks, man.
It was a blast. It was a ton of fun.
We're definitely going to have you on again at some point in the near future. So, but again, thank you everybody.
We can get him to talk about the Cubs.
I'm sure he'd love to.
I'm always willing. I will say when I was younger, I was all about, hate the Cubs. We're always a redheaded stepchild. But that's something that I think as a younger fan, you go through that just because that rivalry is there.
Oh, yeah.
But as you get older, at least for me, it's that development of, I just love baseball.
Absolutely.
It's the Cubs, yeah, but at least they're a fun Cubs team to watch.
Yeah.
Between Rizzo and Bryant and Baez, you've got a lot of fun there, and it's good baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're the Pirates. Unless you're on the receiving end.
Exactly.
Nah, even then, you still got to appreciate it to some aspect.
I don't. Nah. Thanks again for coming on, man.
Yep, thank you for joining. But anyway, like I said, that's all we have. My name is Corey Herbakin. My partner in crime, as always, Michael Farrow.
Yep.
And thank you again to John. We will see you guys next week when we talk about our next team. Thank you, everybody, for listening.